Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here to take a first look at the overall design and specifications of the new EF-M, that's for Canon's mirrorless systems, EOS-M systems. It is the 18 to 150 millimeter. This is being sold as kind of the new kit lens, general purpose, all-in-one, super zoom, whatever you want to call it. For the Canon EOS-M system, and particularly with the M5, and it's being released in a kit with that. There's rumor that the 18 to 55 millimeter, the original kit lens, is going to get phased out. I'll be kind of comparing in the overlap of focal range with the 18 to 55, which I do have a copy around, and so we'll just see how it compares to that, and then also I'll be comparing it a lot to the 55 to 200, where the rest of the overlap is. Now, as you can see physically, both of these lenses are highly similar. And in fact, if we look at the actual specifications, the new 18 to 150 millimeter, it is 2.4 inches in diameter, that's 60.96. Meanwhile, the 55 to 200, it is 2.4 inches in diameter and 60.9 millimeters around. And the new one is 3.4 inches long, fully retracted, and the 55 to 200 is 3.41 inches long, fully retracted. That's 86.36 millimeters as opposed to 86.5 millimeters. So they are literally almost carbon copies of each other in terms of the external physical dimensions. Now, the new lens is a little bit more, dense. Actually weighs in at 10.6 ounces or 301 grams compared to 9.17 ounces or 260 grams. It's hard to tell much of a difference of them just holding them side by side. However, if I switch, to the other hand, I can feel a little bit more density for the 18 to 150 millimeter. And so, the thing is that with a body like the M5, it's got a fully functional grip on it now. And I don't find a lens at this weight is really stretching the limits of this system at all now. And so no problem with that. However, obviously we've gone a long way away from a pocketable type camera. And if that's what you prioritize, I noted in my first look at the EOS M5 that just the overall physical design, there's more kind of protuberances, different places. You can't just throw it in the pocket anymore. And so the original EOS-M, that was really the strength of that camera. You put that with the 22 millimeter f2 on there, and you literally could throw it in a pocket and take up basically no more room than what a point and shoot did. So we're gone from that, but at the same time, you now have a fully functional, basically DSLR, mirrorless body and with this lens you can shoot, and this lens will probably cover about 95% of the shooting situations that you find yourself in. That, of course, when you apply Canon's 1.6 times crop factor, means that this lens has a 35 millimeter equivalent of 28.8 millimeters on the wide end. So, not super wide. And to be frank, I think that's probably where you'll feel more constrained. Probably find yourself in some situations where 18 millimeters just isn't quite wide enough. But that's where we start, and then it tops out at a 35 millimeter equivalent of 240 millimeters. And so again, there might be some situations where you would like a little bit more reach than that. But bottom line is that this lens is going to cover most of what you're going to need to shoot. Now, what I'm going to be trying to determine in my review is how good of image quality you get throughout that focal range. That's an 8.3 times zoom range. And my experience says that lenses that have that kind of zoom range have to make compromises somewhere. And so we'll see where those compromises are as I begin to break down the overall optical performance of the lens. One thing that I will say that is a real area of strength and was one of my primary areas of annoyance with the 55 to 200, which, by the way, I reviewed the 55 to 200 I think last summer. This lens really punches above its size optically. It's actually quite good. But the one thing I didn't like about it is it had a fairly restrictive minimum focus distance. It can only focus down to a meter or 3.3 feet, which just didn't feel close enough in a lot of situations, and as a result, the resulting maximum magnification was a somewhat pedestrian 0.21 times. And so just not great, and I was comparing it at the time to the 55 to 250 millimeter, the EFS lens, STM, and it was much better in that regard. So I kind of lamented that in regards to that lens. That is definitely improved, and although we have a shorter, maximum focal length of 150 millimeters, the lens will focus down to 0.45, or a little less than half a meter as opposed to 1 meter, or down to 1.5 feet, which means that the resulting maximum magnification jumps up from 0.21 to 0.31. And that puts it in a whole new ball game in terms of maximum magnification. That's a very useful figure, and the ability to do, somewhat pseudo macro shots with that, that's an almost 1 to 3 times life size. And so anyway, that's much better. And so I'm happy about that overall. There is a difference in the front filter size. The new lens is a 55 millimeter as opposed to 52 millimeters on the 55 to 200. And let me just go on a brief rant about that, in that I've now reviewed for the M system, I think I've reviewed somewhere around 9 lenses, the majority of the Canon EF-M lenses, along with some third-party options from Samyang Canon, the Tamron 18-200 Super Zoom. And with like 2 exceptions, almost all of them had a different size front filter. That's kind of annoying, considering that, if you try to develop a filter collection, you add a new lens and your existing filters don't fit on it because it's another, kind of unique or odd size. Seems to me that SLR lenses have been much more consistent to ascribing to certain and there's a number of standards, but you'll find that a good percentage of lenses are either 67 millimeters or 77 millimeters, and if they're smaller, it's 58 millimeters. And so if you have filters in those sizes, there's a lot of lenses that you can share filters with. And I mean, I've seen, I think now, somewhere around 7 different filter sizes with these lenses. So anyway, that's somewhat annoying. Now, in terms of price, this lens is individually selling for $499, which makes it the most expensive EF-M lens from Canon that's come out so far. The 55 to 200 right now is about $350. And so it is more expensive. Of course, at the same time, you're getting both the kit 18 to 55 millimeter coverage and most of the 55 to 200 in one lens, and so you might want to view it that way. Bottom line though is, if you're looking for a one lens solution, this is the best option out there. The Tamron is actually quite good, 18 to 200, but I will note that it's physically quite a bit larger than this lens, and I felt kind of on the large size for a native mount for this lens. And furthermore, there has been some compatibility glitches with successive M-series bodies. And so I think that this is probably a better choice for most people, even though it doesn't have quite as much reach, but you'll probably have less issues. This is also optimized to work with the new technologies in the M5 body. It's got a very effective image stabilizer that is really designed around, in video mode, kind of complementing the M-body stabilization. There's a 5-axis M-body stabilization for video, not stills, just for video in the M5. But it's designed to where you can leave both systems on and they will work in conjunction with each other. And I'll be testing to see just how well that works. But that's certainly nice in terms of the overall operation. It's a very, very smooth zoom ring. The manual focus ring, STM manual focus, it's kind of pointless to evaluate the ring performance because it's focused by wire. So it doesn't actually move anything, it just sends electronic impulses to the focus motor, even in manual focus mode. And so I'm not crazy about STM focus, and those of you that follow me have heard me say that lots of times. And so nothing has changed here. The good news, however, is that autofocus here in the studio, everything outside of this little space is very dimly lit, but I'm having no problem, just locking on and acquiring focus. And in better lighting situations, it's focusing really quite well. And so I think that functionally it works very well. We'll see how it holds up optically when I test it primarily on my upcoming trip to the American Southwest. I actually have two M5 bodies, B&H photo. My buddies there were kind enough to get me a couple of bodies, and that's all I'm taking on this trip. Two M5 bodies and a variety of lenses, including the kit lens. And so I'll be testing all of that out on this trip and reporting back to you when I return. I'm Dustin Abbott, and if you haven't already, why don't you look at the image gallery down below. I'll be adding to it on an ongoing basis of stuff I'm getting with the lens, and also you'll find linkage there if you would like to order one for yourself. And if you haven't already, why don't you sign up for my newsletter and be kept up to date with all of the new gear that's coming out, reviews, photos, different things, giveaways, all of those things. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.